So when I was about 10 to 12, somewhere in that range, as a young man, and our family lived on a piece of property that we purchased with a house that had a wood burning stove. Now, it wasn't a particularly old house. It was probably, 15, 20 years by the time we got to it. But it did have a wood burning stove, and we liked to fill that stove during the winter. It got nice and cold where I lived, and it would just heat up the entire basement. We would love to sit around it, read around it, just because it was such a warm glow. And my dad found that we'd use wood, but then he learned the joy of coal, that filling it with coal really just heated the entire house, which was fantastic, except for the fact that you had to prepare to burn coal or wood all winter long to keep your house warm. And to prepare that, he built a coal shed outside of our garage. And before winter came, we would need to fill that coal shed and that wood shed. Well, one year, my father went on a business trip, and he told my brothers, I have two older brothers at that time, we're relatively close in age, and he said, your task is to go fill the coal shed. He'd gotten a trailer, filled it up with coal at the local mine, and brought it over and parked it back by the coal shed. Our job was to pick up that coal, hoist it down, put it in the coal shed. Pretty simple enough task. My brother and I, although we didn't really want to do it, we felt like the task needed to be done, and so we went and started at it. But we found something was a pain. Number one, these were big pieces of coal. They were heavy, they were dirty, and we had to walk down a slope, downstairs to get into our coal shed to put it into the shed. And it didn't take very long before we realized this was going to be a super long task. It wasn't going to be very fun. It was tiring. And these pieces of coal felt so heavy and so large. So my oldest brother, being the creative thinker of the bunch, looked, and he quickly did the science of the situation. He looked at where our trailer was, and he thought, my goodness, we've got gravity on our side. We're at a higher point than the coal shed. All we need to do is use gravity to help us out. So he went to our wood pile and got a couple sheets of plywood, put it down the slope, and then had it rest upon another one that went down the stairs to the bottom of the stairs. And then all we had to do is pick it up and put it in the shed. Well, my goodness, what a great idea, I thought in my 10-year-old mind. This is beautiful. So we'd pick up a piece of coal, we'd roll it right down that slope to the bottom. It would stop there, we'd pick it up and throw it in. And I will tell you what, life was so much better. It started to be fast. It was kind of fun to roll it down and pick it up. And before we knew it, we were halfway through the trailer, and then we got done. We even had a little bit of a fun time doing it. Got all done. We got all cleaned up. And then at some point, my dad came home. I can't remember if it was later that day or the next day. And he went out to inspect our job, our task. We were excited for him to see it. So he went outside our garage into the coal shed, and you have the coal shed right here. Inside the coal shed, it's all filled up with glistening black coal, right? And then up here, up on top, he has the trailer, and it's empty. And we're like, look at what we did. This is so great. Empty coal trailer, full coal shed waiting for him to praise us. And instead of looking there or there, he looks at the path in between. And he sees the ramps, and he sees them covered with black dust. And he sees the stairs, and at the bottom covered with black dust and rubble. And we hadn't really paid attention, but as we were rolling coal down the shed, it was breaking apart. Which is probably why we liked it. It was a lot lighter to lift those pieces of coal after they rolled down than before, but we didn't really think about that. We were just having a fun time getting the project done fast. I love my dad, and he did lots of great things. This one, he missed an opportunity. The opportunity was for him to praise us on what we had done, because we had really tried to do a great job. What he did is he looked at my brother, particularly my oldest brother, and us. He talked about how we did a poor job, how we tried to cut corners, and he assumed that we'd just done a poor job on purpose. And then he pointed out the coal dust, he pointed out the rubble at the bottom, he pointed out that we hadn't even cleaned anything up, and just was disappointed. You know, as a 10-year-old or 11-year-old looking at that situation, I remember how unfair it felt. I remember how unfair it felt of how my dad perceived my brother and the reason he was doing this. The reason wasn't at all for my brother to get out of doing this or to do it in a poor way. My brother was simply using the science he understood to try and make it faster, to try and make it easier, to try and make it more efficient. But he'd missed an important step, and that is the cleanup, but also what happened to the coal along the way. But my dad didn't see that. And he didn't see or talk about the coal shed being filled. He didn't see or talk about the trailer being empty. He saw the mistakes that we made. And that's stuck with me. I remember later on being at my father's home, not that home now, it was a cabin in the woods. And there we were doing the exact same thing with my brothers, except now I had my own kids that were young kids, younger than I was, filling coal sheds and filling wood sheds. And looking at them and looking at how they were doing it. And at some point, my kids were tossing pieces of wood to each other and catching it, trying to make it a game, trying to make it something to pass the time and make it more fun and less like work. And seeing how they were doing it and looking back at how we did it and recognizing that's exactly what we were trying to do. You know, as a father, it's so easy sometimes to look at our kids and assume that we know what they are doing. And, you know, in our stressful lives, we're trying to balance everything. Sometimes it's hard to remember what it's like to be a kid and the motivations we had to be a kid. That we actually wanted to please our parents. We wanted to please our dad. We wanted him to look at us proudly and see what we've done. And sometimes we don't see it. We don't see that the coal shed's full, the trailer's empty. We don't see the effort that was given, the learning that had happened, the decisions or choices that were made that were good. And we focus on the incomplete part that wasn't done, or the part that wasn't done up to our standard. And we feel like we need to, comment on that and change that and fix that in our kids so that they can be successful. As I've thought of that and as I've worked with my own kids, I've found my place in places, myself in the same place as my dad at many different times in as being a dad. Or I'm looking at my kids and I see what they've done and I get angry or I get disappointed. Or I get so focused on that they need to do it this certain way, otherwise they won't be successful, or my role to teach, my role to change, all that kind of a thing. But I found when I've done that, it has strained my relationships with my kids. They really haven't learned what it is I strove to teach them, and what they've walked away with is a dad who's disappointed in them. That doesn't work. And I'm here as an expert to tell you it does not work well, either from my own childhood or having done it to my kids. The times when it does work well, I do 3 things. And I want to share that with you today. Number 1, I do this. Now, what is this for? If any of you work at home like I do, when someone comes to my door in there and they're coming in, I'm on a call or something, I go like this. I don't even say anything. I just look like this, put my finger up out of the camera like this. My kids know when they see that, it's like, one moment, don't come in, give me a second, right? So this is not for them to stop, it's for me to stop and take a moment. To not make rash comments, rash judgments, to take a moment to look at what's being done, right? So number 1, take a moment. Don't jump in and say something, especially if you're feeling angry, frustrated, needing to control the situation. Nope. Don't say a thing. Nope. Not a thing. You got to take a moment. Sometimes that moment means you need to go for a walk. Sometimes it means you need to go upstairs in your room or go get a drink or whatever it is, you need to calm. Take a moment. Number 2 is before you say your side, you need to see it from their side, the other angle, not yours, theirs. Look at what they did. Remember what it was like to be that age. Why did they do it? You can even ask questions. Have them explain what they've done before you jump to conclusions about what they've done. See what it is they're trying to do. And I'll tell you 9 times out of 10, you'll realize that there are elements of things they did that were great that maybe you didn't see right off because you focused on the imperfect piece. See how they did it, see what they did, and see it from their angle. Number 3 is when you need to teach or correct, you take the third option. And what that is the first option is I'm right, you're wrong. The second option is they're right, I'm wrong. The third option is what principle is right here and how can I teach it with love and understanding. And that's what it is. So for example, in that first story I had, my dad had taken a moment to see what we'd really done. He'd probably taken a moment to praise us for the job that we did, for unloading a ton, 2, 3, several tons of coal as young teens or tweens and putting it in there without him there. That's something worth praising for sure. He could have done that, and then he'd take the time to teach us a principle. And 2 principles he could have taught us was the importance of cleaning up and the importance of looking at how we're doing things and how it affects things, not just at the end, but in the middle. What is it that we're doing and how will that affect things? That'll help us in our jobs, it'll help us in our lives. He could have sat down and simply taught us, and praised us. And I'll tell you what, that would have been a remarkable experience. And instead of walking away, remembering that my dad was disappointed in me for the jobs that I don't do, and that I don't do a job well or am perfect, I could have walked away feeling like my dad supported me, loved me, saw me, and that I could learn and know how to do something even better. I think as dads, that's our great opportunity, is to do that. But it takes 3 things. You got to take a moment. Don't say anything. See them for what they've done. Look through their eyes and praise them for the good that they do. Number 3, take the third option. Simply teach principles in love. You don't have to be right. They don't have to be wrong. We just teach them what it is that we see and what will help them be better. I hope this is helpful for you. You know, I've found many times where I have not followed those options, but I can guarantee that every time when I have done those 3 options, it's helped things go significantly better and helped my relationships with my kids get much, much stronger. So hope this was helpful. Remember those 3 things. You know, if you have a hard time raising kids, I've been there. I'm still in the middle of it. I've had lots of things, mistakes that I've made, but I've learned a lot of things, and that's why I share on this channel some of those things to help you become a powerhouse dad, just like I'm striving to be. If you have questions, comments, or wants to chat with someone, reach out. But for sure, I'd appreciate it if you just signed up for notifications from this. YouTube will notify you as soon as we post some more ideas, and I hope they help your life. So thank you very much for watching.